I once made a video for the best diet for weight loss. I'll link that here. So in today's video, I thought I would discuss the best diet for muscle building, if that's a goal of yours. So let's jump right into it. First, you may be thinking, well, why would I even want to build muscle? And that is a great question. So apart from the aesthetic look of being leaner and looking more toner, and also apart from the obvious benefit of being stronger and being able to be independent and do things for yourself, building muscle has a lot of different benefits. First being joint support. So when you think about your joints, the shoulder, your knee, your hips, there are muscles that are around those joints that can take on a lot of the impact of our everyday lives if there are muscle behind it. So the more muscle you have, let's say around your quadriceps and your hamstrings, when you're walking, when you're squatting, when you're doing things, that's going to be less impact on your knee joint, and the muscle, the quadricep and the hamstring, are going to take on that impact. This is a way of protecting your joints by building the muscles that are around them. Secondly, we have a caloric benefit. So muscle burns more calories than fat does. What that means is the more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn by just sitting around, by maybe doing exercise, by doing anything, just because you have more muscle mass. So what this means is you're able to eat more without putting on extra weight, because the calories are being burned off simply by having more muscle than you do have fat in your body. Muscle also uses sugar for fuel, so this is a great way of regulating our blood sugar. So that helps with that prevention of diabetes by pulling the sugar out of our blood to be used for fuel. Having more muscle helps with your balance. The same reason that it helps with your joints. So by having that protection and having something in your body that's taking on that force, that's helping you, when you trip, you got to activate your glutes, your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, to kind of stop yourself from falling. So that are all muscles that are helping you in that stability. Weight management, just like I mentioned with the calorie benefit, just like I mentioned with the blood sugar. So this is all a way of regulating our weight as well. Better core strength. So when you have good muscle, we have less slouching, so less rounding of that shoulder. We have better posture because our core is activated, it's keeping us upright. So this is another great benefit of muscle mass. And then of course we have the mental health benefit. So one, just the actively going to the gym and doing exercises, or again, I always say go to the gym, but I just mean, anywhere. So just doing exercise in general has a mental health benefit that I've mentioned in previous videos, but also just that confidence. So being stronger, looking how you want to look, feeling good in your body. Like I said, not having that hunched over shoulders, but being able to have good posture, feeling good, all of these things, feeling good about your health, knowing that your weight is being regulated, knowing that your blood sugar is being regulated, knowing that your blood pressure is good. So things like this can help boost our mental health, because these are problems we don't really have to think about every single day when we have a proper amount of muscle. Enough with the benefits. Now let's briefly go into, well, how do we build muscle? Because it's not just going to happen naturally. Of course, we all are born with some muscle mass around our body. To build muscle mass, we have to put a stimulus on our muscle. So we have to put it in a situation that it is not used to in order for it to break down and then grow again. So in order to do that, we have to do some form of strength training, whether that is calisthenics, using your body weight, whether that's going to the gym and lifting weights, whether that's taking a Pilates or yoga class. So anything that is causing you to activate muscles that you usually would not, allow them to tear down because you're putting a force on it it's not used to. Because it's used to carrying your body around, but it's not used to carrying your body plus other things. You get what I'm saying? Or it's not used to doing a certain movement over and over again in repetition. So that's going to cause it to work and then tear and then repair. So we have to put ourselves under some kind of stimulus in order to allow our muscles to grow. That is the first part of it. The second part of it is the purpose of this video. So while our going through exercise is going to help us build muscle, we also need the nutrition part very much so in order to help build that as well. Because our bodies naturally break down protein on a daily basis to go through metabolic processes, whether that's building antibodies, whether that's helping to support our immune system, whether that's helping to grow our hair, protect our skin. So all day our body is breaking down protein to do these things. So the protein that we put in our body It's breaking it down and then using it for what it needs to use it for. And then our muscles also use protein in order to build. So again, as we are eating protein and our muscles have broken down, our muscles are going to use that protein to rebuild itself. So we have to have a proper diet where we are consuming enough protein at a faster rate than our body is breaking it down. That is the only way we're going to build muscle, because if we're not eating enough protein and our body is breaking down, so to put it in numbers terms, let's say our body breaks down 50 grams of protein a day to do its normal bodily functions and to repair muscles that you have now torn down by doing exercise or regular day movements. If we are eating 50 grams of protein, we're giving our bodies just enough. If we're eating less than 50 grams, we're not giving our bodies enough. So our muscle mass is going to shrink because now our body is pulling protein out of our muscles to help build these processes. And if we're eating more than our body needs, then our body is able to store that and make in order to build more muscles. And of course, if it's way too much, then it could then store that as fat. So we have to have that sweet spot of having just a little bit more than we need in order to build on muscle mass while keeping ourselves lean. And that is finally what we're going to get to in this video. Let me preface this with the assumption that you want to build muscle mass while staying lean. So of course, lots of people out there are putting on muscle mass. We call this bulking or dirty bulking, which is when we're needing to put on muscle, but we're putting on fat with it. And then we have lean gain. That's when we're putting on muscle, but we're keeping our body fat low. So we're just trying to put on muscle, maybe like the littlest amount of body fat. So basically we're trying to stay lean and fill out with muscle. So that's a very different diet than if you're just trying to gain weight in general, muscle and fat. First thing you want to focus on, which of course is eating protein. So the diet here is not going to be too much different than the diet for weight loss, because while we are having a goal of building on muscle mass, we still want to have a healthy diet. We still want to, have proper nutrients in our body. We still want to eat for longevity. So that's not going to be too much different, but we are going to want to focus on a little bit more protein. So I would say the first thing to do if you're coming from someone who doesn't really eat that much protein is just to start with trying to have 30 grams of protein at every main meal. So that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Make sure your breakfast has 30 grams of protein. Make sure your lunch has at least 30 grams of protein. And make sure your dinner has 30 grams of protein. 2 reasons to do this. 1, we're spreading it out. So every time we consume protein, our body is going through protein synthesis to break that down and put it into our body. So let's say we're going 12 hours fasted. Well, in that 12-hour period, our body is doing nothing but breaking down protein, right? And then when we eat protein, now it's making the protein again. So if you can spread it out throughout the day, we have more frequent phases of protein synthesis than we do have protein degradation. So that's the first reason. And the second reason is just a lot easier to spread out protein throughout the day than it is to try to consume 100, 200 grams of protein in one sitting. So when you can just prioritize having protein 3 times a day at your main meals, and that's 30 grams, we're already at 90 grams of protein. We don't have to stop there. So let's say we also have 2 snacks a day along with those 3 meals. We can also try to have protein in those snacks. Maybe not as much as 30, but we can do even 10 to 15. So if we have 2 snacks a day of, let's say, 15 grams of protein, that's another 30. So now we're at 120 grams a day. And that is honestly a great starting point. As time goes on and you are still wanting to increase your size or increase your muscle mass, then from that point, we can slowly start to increase we can slowly start to increase our protein intake from there. So instead of doing 30 grams with every main meal, maybe we do 35, maybe we do 40. So just slightly increasing it. That could just be a slightly bigger portion. Instead of doing a 4-ounce chicken, maybe we're doing 5 ounces of chicken now. So it's slowly increasing it. So we're not too overwhelmed. We don't want to be overwhelming ourselves or our systems with trying to consume way more protein than we're used to. Okay, so we're going to play the gradual increase game here. Now, in general, you don't want to consume more than 2 grams per pound of body weight of protein. And this is because research has shown that once we get into that 2.2 to 2.6 range, this is actually starting to become a problematic health issue of eating that much protein. Now, we all have those outliers, okay? So just because I text and drive and I've never gotten into an accident doesn't mean that texting and driving isn't dangerous. So if you can eat 2.5 to 3 grams of protein per your body pound and you have been living just fine, then okay, it doesn't apply to you. But for most people, you don't want to consume more than 2 grams per body pound. So what that means is if you are a 150 pound person, you shouldn't be consuming 300 grams of protein per day, because that is a lot for your body weight. Instead, a good starting point would be, let's say, 1 gram. So again, if you are a 150 pound person, 150 grams of protein per day could be a good number for you. Now, they say on the low end, you want to have 0.8 grams. That's just regular maintenance. So from 0.8 to 2.0 grams is a good range of protein per pound of body weight. And I say that you can use this scale based off of your activity level. So if you're completely sedentary, you might want to just do 0.8. If you are very active, weight training 5 to 6 times a week and really breaking down your muscle mass every single day, on top of, being running and doing a lot of cardio or biking or whatever, you might want to be a little more on the 2.0 range, because you have a lot of protein degradation as opposed to the person who is living a more sedentary lifestyle. If you are someone on the end of, let's say, a little severely overweight, I wouldn't go off of your body pounds of protein. So I would keep that more as a solid number. So what I mean by that is, if you are a 300 pound person and most of your body composition is fat, I wouldn't consume 300 grams of protein, you get what I'm saying. And there's a reason that I'm saying starting small. So like I said, if you are a 150 pound person, so your target is 150 grams of protein, but I just told you that 30 grams at breakfast, lunch, and dinner plus 2 snacks in between is 120 grams of protein. You still need another 30 grams of protein somewhere. So maybe that's just going to be like having a shake with something that you're eating. You get what I'm saying? So it can be difficult getting in those amounts of protein, especially if you're living a more vegetarian or vegan lifestyle. It can be even more difficult to get in lean protein. So yes, you get protein from, chickpeas and beans, but those also come at the price of carbs as well. So just pure, strictly lean protein is going to be a little more difficult on a diet like that. The second thing you're going to want to do is to eat carbs. So carbs is actually our number one source of fuel in our body. Our body prefers to metabolize carbohydrates because it's thermodynamically positive. They don't have to expend as much energy in order to process carbs. So it's going to want to use those up first. In order for our bodies to avoid breaking down protein for energy, we need carbs in our system, so it will use that instead. So you definitely want to eat carbs, but in order to, again, keep our body fat low, we want those to be whole carbs. So we're talking whole grains, oatmeal, barley, something like that. We want the carbs from fruits and vegetables. We want the carbs from less processed things, so more whole foods and less things like the sugars, cookies, bagels, donuts. Like, we don't want those kind of carbs because those come at a cost of body fat. And lastly, we want to eat fat. Again, the healthy ones. So not the ones that are coming from your cakes and pastries, but the ones coming from seed oil or seeds themselves or nuts or avocados. We want to incorporate those kinds of fats in our diet. Now, how much you have honestly doesn't really matter. What I mean by that is, if you want to have a more fat-rich diet and eat little carbs, that is just as effective of having a higher carb diet and little fat. They're going to be the same in terms of building muscle mass. Now, again, if you are an endurance athlete where you're running all the time, you're probably going to need a little more carbs than the average person because, again, you need instant fuel. You don't want your body breaking down protein to help you run these marathons. So in that instance, yes, you're going to want to have more carbs. But when we're just doing our bare minimum amount of cardio and we're doing weight training, then yes, the amount of carbs to fat doesn't really matter. Again, unless you're prepping for a show or something, then that's going to be completely different. But I'm talking about the average person here. Okay, and then lastly, I'll talk about going the intuitive versus the calculative approach. So intuitive, I actually have a plate here for you. Let me grab it. Okay, so let's say this is your dinner plate, okay? So I want 50% of this to be your vegetables, okay? So vegetables or fruits, however you want to have it, breakfast, lunch, dinner. This side, 50% of the plate we want to leave for fruits and vegetables. One, those are also carbs, but there are whole food carbs, okay? And then we want to split this plate. So the next 50%, we're going to do not a complete 50 where there's two 50s here, but we're going to do more of like a 45 angle. So we want to leave, let's say, 30% of that plate for your protein. And then that very small slither here, we can use for other carbs. That maybe you want like some rice or some pasta or something like that to go with your protein and vegetables. So we're leaving that there. We're also leaving that section for our fat. So if you want some avocados, you want some oil. Obviously, you're not going to just put a slab of oil on your plate. I'm saying by eyeballing it, if you want to, let's say, dress your chicken or something with some type of oil dressing or cook it in some oil, we're going to let that be a very small portion that's left in your fat section. Maybe you want to throw some nuts in your granola in the morning or something like that. So you want to just leave this little section for your fat and then your other carbs that aren't fruit and vegetables, okay? So one, this is giving you the health benefits, but also you're getting in enough protein as well. Now for the calculative approach, I will put some things in the description box that can help you figure this out. First thing you want to do is figure out what your basal metabolic rate is. So that is how many calories you burn at rest. You have to do this by either using some links that I'm going to drop, like going onto a website that will tell you that for you based off of your age, activity level, weight, things like that. You can also go somewhere and get one of those body scans that tells you what your muscle mass composition is, your body fat composition, and it'll tell you based off of your composition how much you burn at rest. But we want that base number. So let's say that is 1,500. Then you want to include how much calories you burn from activity. So when you work out, the thermic effect of food. So yes, as you're eating food, your body is using energy to digest it. So really, when you're eating 100 grams of protein, it's more like 90. Then we also have NEATs. That is the calories you burn by doing non-exercise activities. So even me right now talking to you, I'm doing my hands, I'm looking this way, I'm burning calories doing this. So you see how it can be a little inaccurate to pinpoint exactly how many calories you burn. This is why it's important to do a trial and error on yourself. We'll get into that later. So you have to also take into account all those calories that you burn. So let's say with your just sitting around doing nothing, like we said, was 1,500 calories a day. And let's say between working out, digesting your food, and just moving around, you burn an additional 500. So now we're burning 2,000 calories a day. If we don't want to change anything about our body, we would have to eat 2,000 calories a day, because then the net of that would be 0. If you wanted to lose weight, you would eat less than 2,000 calories so that you are still burning more than you're eating. And then if you want to gain muscle, you're going to have to eat more than 2,000 calories a day. You get what I'm saying? Now, if you're trying to also put on body fat, you want to eat somewhere between 500 to, let's say, 700 calories more than you burn a day. We don't want that here. We're just trying to build lean muscle. So you want to start somewhere between eating 200 to 300 calories more than you burn. So if you're burning 2,000 calories, you're going to want to start with trying to eat 2,200 to 2,300 calories a day and see how that goes. Try that out for a couple weeks. Weigh yourself maybe once a week or every 3 days. Take the average of that number and just see if you are increasing. If you're increasing a lot, you might want to tone it back a little bit. If you're not increasing that much at all, you might want to bump up your calories a little bit more. So you get what I'm saying? You're going to have to play with it to actually get a real estimate of what you are eating. And then the annoying part about that is you also want to have to keep your food very consistent. Once you find your sweet spot and you do that for enough time, it becomes more intuitive. You can begin to eyeball foods and know how your body is going to do. So it's going to be less of all that work in the beginning. But like I said, if you need to see the numbers, that's how we do it. So now that you have how many calories you need to eat, let's say you decided on 2,300, then from that you have to decide how you want to break up your macromolecules, the protein, the carbs, and the fat. Do you want to do 30% across the board? Well, that wouldn't be even, but let's say you want to do 30% protein, 40% carbs, and then another 30% fat. So you'll have to multiply 2,300 times 40% to get how many carbs you want to eat, 2,300 times 30% to get how much protein, and etc. And again, I'll put this all in the description box so you'll know how to do that. But then that's how you can decide how much you need to eat per day, and then how much you want to eat at every meal in order to make that target. So this is a lot more work, but some people do need this because they need it down to the T. Other people are able to get away with that intuitive approach. So again, you have to just kind of see what's the best for you. So to recap, what I'm saying the best diet for muscle building is one that is rich in our nutrients by eating our vegetables and fruits and whole grains. One that is rich in protein by consuming protein at every main meal and also having a little bit of protein within our snacks so that we are building enough protein in our body to keep that protein synthesis going, to ergo help us build muscle mass. And to 3, make sure that we're eating the proper amounts of fat that's going to keep us lean, but also have health benefits and help us reach our calorie goals. So if you like this video, you know what to do. Give me that thumbs up. Please share it with someone that is on that muscle building journey that might need to hear this. Please check out the video for the best diet for weight loss as well. And I will catch you in the next video. As always, don't forget to crush it.